Welcome to Where Light Ends. Today we're diving into something really fascinating, a place where physics and psychology kind of collided.
Yeah, it's an amazing story, actually. We're talking about Wolfgang Pauli, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist, teaming up with Carl Jung, the famous psychoanalyst.
Two giants from completely different fields. And they asked this huge question. Is life just governed by pure chance? Or is there maybe some hidden order behind all those weird coincidences we sometimes experience?
It really does sound like fiction, doesn't it? But it's true. Pauli, the Pauli from the exclusion principle in quantum physics.
Well, yeah, a foundational figure.
Absolutely. He actually started seeing Carl Jung because he was having these intense, disturbing dreams.
And wasn't there that weird story about him, the Pauli effect?
Oh, right, the legend, yeah. That experimental equipment would just mysteriously break down or malfunction whenever he walked into the lab.
Seriously, did people actually believe that?
Apparently, some physicists did, or at least joked about it nervously. It adds to his whole mystique, I guess. But the reason he went to Jung was much more personal.
Right. You mentioned the dreams. This was back in the 1930s.
Yeah, exactly. Pauli was facing a real crisis. His mother had died, he'd gone through a difficult divorce, and he was just, haunted by these incredibly vivid, symbolic dreams. He felt lost.
So he ends up on Jung's couch.
Wow. And that meeting kicked off this incredible friendship, this intellectual partnership. They exchanged hundreds of letters. Pauli shared, I think, over 400 of his dreams with Jung.
400. That's a lot of dreams.
It really is. And Jung interpreted them, and together they became obsessed with this idea Jung called synchronicity.
Okay, so synchronicity. You hear that word thrown around. What did Jung actually mean by it?
Well, Jung defined it as a meaningful coincidence. Two or more events that seem connected in a meaningful way. But crucially, there's no obvious causal link between them.
So not just cause and effect. Like, you think of an old friend you haven't spoken to in ages.
Yeah, exactly. And then suddenly, out of the blue, they text you or call you that same day.
Okay, I think everyone's had something like that happen.
Right, Jung's classic example involved one of his patients. She was describing a dream she'd had about a golden scarab beetle.
A golden scarab.
And right at that exact moment, as she's telling him the dream, there's a tapping on the window. Jung opens it, and in flies a beetle, a scarabade beetle, which was actually very uncommon in their city.
Whoa. Okay, that's pretty specific.
Exactly. For Jung, moments like that felt like the mind, the inner world, and the external world were somehow reflecting each other, communicating through these impossible-seeming coincidences.
But the big question then is, what is that? Is it something almost magical? Or are our brains just really, really good at spotting patterns even when there aren't any?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's where Pauli's perspective as a physicist became so important.
Because quantum physics has its own share of weirdness that defies common sense.
Totally. Think about quantum entanglement. You have two particles, they interact, and then you can separate them, even light years apart. But whatever you do to one particle instantly affects the other one.
Instantly. With no signal traveling between them.
As far as we know, yes, instantly. There's no classical cause and effect explanation for how the information gets from one to the other. It just is.
So Pauli saw that and thought, maybe synchronicity is something like that.
Sort of. He wondered if there might be fundamental causal connections in the universe. Links between things that aren't based on direct physical cause and effect and aren't just pure randomness either. Something else.
A third principle, maybe?
Perhaps. And this led them towards this idea of the unus munduses, right?
Yes. The one world. That sounds pretty mystical.
It does, but they were trying to conceptualize it seriously. They envisioned this unus mundus as a kind of deeper underlying layer of reality, a place where mind and matter, psyche and physis aren't really separate things.
Just two different aspects of the same underlying something.
Exactly. Two sides of the same coin, emerging from this unified source. And Pauli, even with his super rational scientific brain, was completely fascinated by this.
He really tried to connect the dots, didn't he, between Jung's ideas and physics?
Oh, constantly. He was always looking for parallels. He'd try to map Jung's archetypes, these universal patterns Jung saw in the human psyche, onto the fundamental patterns and symmetries he saw in physics.
Like what kind of patterns?
Well, he was particularly interested in the number 4, which pops up a lot in both Jungian psychology, like the 4 functions of consciousness, and in physics, like aspects of particle spin or quantum numbers. He wondered if these were reflections of the same underlying structure in this unus mundus.
That's a pretty radical idea. trying to find the same blueprint in the mind and in subatomic particles.
It really was. And their letters are full of this back and forth, Pauli sharing dreams, Jung interpreting, both of them trying to figure out if synchronicity was maybe, just maybe, a glimpse into this hidden, unified world.
So, fast forward to today. How does the scientific community view all this? Is it taken seriously, or is it mostly seen as, interesting philosophical speculation?
Well, the general scientific consensus is still pretty skeptical. Synchronicity is just it's incredibly hard to test in a controlled, repeatable way in a lab. How do you measure meaningfulness objectively?
Right, that's the tricky part. It's subjective.
Exactly. So most scientists tend to stick to explanations involving probability, confirmation bias. We notice and remember the weird coincidences and forget the millions of times nothing happens.
Which makes sense, rationally.
It does. But the ideas haven't completely vanished.
Yeah.
Some really significant thinkers have been inspired by this line of thought. People like the physicist David Bohm, his idea of the implicate order has some echoes of the unus mundus.
Boom, right. And wasn't there Rupert Sheldrake, too?
Yeah. Yes, Rupert Sheldrake and his theory of morphic resonance. That's another idea suggesting non-local connections, a kind of collective memory in nature. These ideas are definitely outside the mainstream, but they show that the core question Pauli and Jung raised still resonates.
The question of whether it's all just chance, or if there's sometimes a deeper meaning, a hidden connection we just can't quite grasp yet.
Precisely.
Have you ever had one of those moments yourself? A coincidence that just felt too weird to be random?
Oh, definitely. Small things mostly, but sometimes. Yeah. You think about someone you haven't heard from in years, and the phone rings. Or you're searching for an answer to something obscure and it just falls into your lap from an unexpected source. It makes you pause.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I had this one time I was thinking really intensely about an old college friend, completely out of the blue. Hadn't crossed my mind in maybe a year. The very next day, he sent me a message on social media.
You see, it's those moments that really make you wonder.
It totally blew my mind. Now, rationally, I tell myself, okay, maybe something subconsciously triggered the memory. Maybe he was thinking of me too for some reason. Maybe it's just confirmation bias making it seem significant.
But it feels like more, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes you question that purely random view of the universe, even just for a second.
And maybe that's the point. Do we just filter out all the non-coincidences and remember the hits? Or is there occasionally a genuine signal in the noise, a subtle thread connecting events in a way we don't understand?
Maybe Jung and Pauli were just way ahead of their time. Science still hasn't figured everything out, far from it.
Not even close. Think about consciousness itself, arguably the biggest mystery. Or the true nature of quantum entanglement. Or even what true randomness actually is.
Yeah, fundamental questions are still wide open.
So perhaps the next big leap in understanding won't come just from physics or just from psychology, but from somewhere in between. Exactly the kind of conversation these two pioneers started decades ago.
It's a fascinating thought. That the deepest insights might lie at the boundaries between disciplines.
Definitely something to ponder.
Thank you for following us on Where Light Ends. Don't forget to subscribe.
Thank you for following us on Where Light Ends. And remember, sometimes where the light ends, the biggest questions begin. Don't forget to subscribe.